If you're looking to purchase a home in Houston, Texas in 2024 or beyond, then this video is for you. My name is Katie Day, and I am a local Houston real estate agent, and my team helps people move into and around the greater Houston area. Today, we're going to dig into what the housing market looks like here in Houston at the beginning of 2024, what I think is going to happen this year, and then what you need to know and how you need to prepare if you are looking to purchase a home this year in the greater Houston area. So right now in Houston, we are at the beginning of 2024. We are in what is considered to be somewhat of a seller's market. Depending on what the neighborhood or price point you are looking in, there may be more opportunity than others. We generally will measure the health of the real estate market based on how many homes are selling and the velocity in which they sell. One item that we look at is called months of inventory. This is something that we are measuring on a very regular basis. So this means that if the amounts of inventory this month are higher than last month, then home sales have probably slowed down. Whether or not you pay attention to what's been happening in the housing market, 2020 and 2021, and then the first half of 2022 were 2.5 of the busiest years in real estate across the nation, but definitely here in Houston. Interest rates were anywhere between 3 to 4%, and this created a significant amount of buyer demand, and then inventory was scarce. But last year in 2023, things were a little bit slower because interest rates increased up to almost 8%, or sometimes 8% or higher. We saw less home sales throughout the entire year, and up until November 2023, that was the first month that we saw year-over-year sales where November 2023's sales exceeded November 2022. As of early January 2024, we are sitting at 3.4 months of inventory, which compared to 2022 and 2023 is higher. But what months of inventory is that if no more homes came on the market and homes continue to sell at the pace that they have been selling, when would we run out of homes that are on the market? And so 3.4 months is considered to be a slightly balanced market, definitely leaning a little bit more toward the seller's market. And so that's where, depending on your price point and neighborhood, it could be higher or lower than that 3.4. So 1 to 3 months is considered to be a seller's market, 3 to 6 is balanced, and then 6 or more is a buyer's market. Right now in Houston, the average sales price is around $400,000. So you can definitely find a home in the greater Houston area for less than $400,000, but it's definitely more competitive if you're below that 400K mark. While the number is high, just as far as an average sales price goes, it is a decrease from the average sales price from its highest point, which was May 2022 when it hit over $440,000. So if you want to stay under 400K and you want a decent amount of space, you're likely going to need to be in the suburbs. If you want to be inside the loop, you will be able to find things, but it's probably going to be a townhome or a 3-story home or maybe a condo or a small home, but not a ton of yard space or green space or things like that. So the first step in purchasing your new home is going to be determining your budget. So if you've not already talked to a lender, that needs to be a conversation that you want to have as early as possible so you can determine what your budget's going to be. Having that conversation is also helpful to ensure that if you need to improve your credit score, save more money, or do different things, you can understand what you need to do in order to make that happen. If you wait until the day before you want to buy a home and then you have work to do, you're probably not going to be able to buy a house. What's also helpful too is that if you have a conversation today and you understand what your budget is with today's market and today's interest rates, then if interest rates go up or down, you're going to understand what your purchasing power looks like. Generally speaking, when you're watching national news, they're going to be talking about headlines that don't always apply to you. So having that local lender that you're in contact with is very beneficial. If you need to be connected to my lender, use the link in the description of this video to book a call and I'll get you their information. So when you talk to a lender, they're going to help you to determine what the best down payment's going to be for you, what the monthly payment's going to look like for you on the home budget and price that you're looking to spend, and if there's anything that you need to do to potentially improve your credit to ensure that you're ready to purchase your home. They're also going to give you what your maximum pre-approval amount is. We generally will encourage people to stay below that maximum level to ensure that you are comfortable with your monthly payment. They're probably also going to go over different loan products because depending on your financial situation, your debt, your job history, how much cash you have on hand and things like that, it may make sense for you to explore different types of loans. Once you've been pre-approved and you understand what your purchasing power looks like and your budget, it's important to find a realtor. Working with a realtor is a good idea because we do have access to market data. Here in Texas, we are a non-disclosure state, which means you don't have to report the price that you paid for your home to your county taxing authority. This also means that websites like HAR, Zillow, and others don't always have accurate sales prices. It's normally a range. So if you paid $500,000 for your house, it may say, $485,000 to $515,000. Realtors also act as your advocate, helping to guide you through the paperwork, the legalities, potential pitfalls, and always ensure that your interests are protected. We also have a network of professionals from mortgage lenders to inspectors to title companies to help streamline the process for you as you're purchasing your home. So whether you're a first-time home buyer or an experienced one, and having a realtor by your side is very helpful in securing your home here in Houston. Once you have determined your budget, you want to pick an area or neighborhood and type of home. So there are a variety of neighborhoods to choose from. It's important that you do your research and find a place that's a good fit for you. A few things to consider would obviously be your budget. While Houston is affordable compared to lots of major metro markets and places in the country, there are still a ton of different price points to choose from here, and it's important for you to set your budget before you start looking at houses. While Houston is an affordable place to live, the area that you want to live in will likely dictate your budget. The amount of space that you want is likely going to dictate where you live. Again, as I said before, homes in the suburbs are going to have way more space both inside the actual house itself and the yard as compared to the inner loop and the different city kind of neighborhoods within the city. Obviously, you also want to consider your lifestyle. There's a lot to offer here in Houston, so think about what you want in a neighborhood. Do you want to be close to work? Do you want to be near parks and green space? Do you want to be near bars? Do you want to be near restaurants? Do you want to be in a more family-friendly neighborhood? Do you want to be in an area with sidewalks? There are so many different things to consider if you want to find your home. Another thing to think about is your commute. If you do commute to work, you want to factor that in. Obviously, some are going to be better than others. Your proximity to the highway is also probably going to be important. You can use Google Maps or HAR to help predict commute times in and around the city. And then I always recommend trying out that commute to ensure that it would be something that you'd be open to doing on like an everyday basis. As far as types of homes, we'll work with you to help to determine your preferences like bedrooms, bathrooms, features, amenities versus price versus location. I always tell clients to focus in on the things that they cannot change, like the location. So the surrounding areas may change some, but are you okay with living in that area today? The commute time, you can't really change that. Obviously, you could change your job, but if you're going to stay in your job for the foreseeable future, that's going to be your commute, right? The lot size, you can't generally make it bigger unless you buy more land. The square footage normally won't change, and potentially the layout. Some of these things you can change, right? Like you could change the layout, you could change the square footage of the house, but that'd be expensive. Things you can change are paint colors, flooring choices, design choices, things like that. So try to not get too caught up if they have like purple walls that you don't like. The other thing that you want to think about is if you want new construction or resale. Both come with pros and cons. We'll dig into those in another video. Think about that because there is a lot of new construction in the greater Houston area. Once you've determined where you want to be and your budget, the next step is to actually go start touring homes. This is the fun part. But we recommend touring 5 to 8 homes max at a time because once you see like 7 or 8 houses, they all tend to run together and you don't really remember what they are unless they're really awesome or they really suck. So when we tour homes, we're going to ask you about the things that you liked, things that you didn't like after each home tour, and we're also going to ask you to rank them between 1 to 10 so that we can discuss all of them when we're done. Most homes also are going to require some sort of approval process for showing, so we're not able to just like walk into them. So we need to know what properties you want to see like 12 to 24 hours in advance, because another thing that we do is we check with the listing agent to see if there are any other offers. If they're expecting any, we want to learn a little bit more about the property and potentially any seller preferences, because if you like that home and you want to make an offer, we need to know that information. It's also helpful for us to build some rapport. So again, if you do want to make an offer, we have an established relationship with that listing agent. Okay, so if you find a home that you like, you're going to want to put in an offer. The first thing that we do as a real estate agent is we're going to run a comparable market analysis. Fancy words to basically say we're going to see what other homes in the area have been selling for, and then where basically we would recommend you submitting an offer. We're going to provide that to you and show you kind of what's been happening in the area. Another thing that we're going to do when you want to put in an offer is we're going to speak to the listing agent. So we're going to reach back out to them to have a conversation to make sure, again, that there aren't any offers on the table, what preferences the seller may have in regards to the closing date or different terms and negotiable items throughout the contract, things like that, to make sure that we're putting your best foot forward. One thing that people don't always realize is if you are putting in an offer on a property here, at least in the Houston area, but generally in Texas, you are going to submit it on a contract. So we take the sales contract for the property and we fill in your name, we fill in the sales price of the property. There are about 15 to 20 other kind of negotiable items throughout the contract that we're going to fill in. And then what we would do is we would submit that with your signature on the contract to the listing agent to review with the seller. My goal is to submit an offer that is so clean and has the best terms possible that the seller just says, hey, we want to move forward with this, and they sign it and you're officially under contract. But that's not always how it happens. Normally there's going to be some back and forth, right? So if we submit an offer with different terms, there's probably going to be one or two things that the seller is going to say, hey, can you do this type of deposit, or can you do a shorter contingency period or something like that. There will be some back and forth, and that's something that you need to expect when you are putting in an offer on a property. So again, there are a lot of negotiable items throughout the contract. So we're going to go over not only just the sales price and closing date, but other things throughout the contract that you may pay for or the seller may pay for, depending on how competitive of a situation it is and what the seller is looking for as far as their net proceeds and what they're going to walk away with after the sale is done. Again, there will be some back and forth, but at whatever point they say, hey, we do want to move forward, the seller would then sign their side of the contract and we would officially be under contract. At that point in time, you have two things that you need to pay: an option fee and earnest money. The option fee gives you an option period, which is basically your due diligence time frame. During that time, which is normally anywhere between 5 to 10 days, you would be able to do your inspections, but you also have the unrestricted right to terminate the contract. So if there was something that came up on the inspection report, if there was something that came up that you no longer wanted to purchase this home, you would be able to have that out in the contract. You would lose that option fee. The option fee is normally going to be a few $100s, anywhere from $250 to maybe $500 to $750, is depending on obviously your price point on the home that you're buying. You would lose that option fee, but that earnest money would be refunded back to you if you were to terminate or cancel during that option period. The earnest money is the other thing that you need to pay, and that earnest money will normally be anywhere between 1% to 2% of the sales price of the property when you're purchasing a resale home. If you're buying a new construction home, there's normally no option period and no option fee, but you would have that deposit, and that earnest money deposit could be anywhere between 1% up to sometimes 20 or 30 grand, depending on the builder and depending on what type of upgrades you may be doing to the property. So once you've paid that option fee and earnest money, you're going to do inspections, and basically when you get an inspection report back from the inspector, even on a new construction home, this is normally a 40 to 50 page report. The biggest inspection report I've ever seen was 130 pages long. It was a large house and it was also old, so there was a ton of information on there. Keep in mind, for an inspection report, they're going to point out anything that's deficient in the property. So it's not necessarily things that all need to be fixed. So it's not something that's now become your honey-do list of things that you have to complete and fix. But I normally break it down into things that are health and safety issues, things that you need to know about in order to budget for the future, and then things that you just need to be aware of, right? So health and safety issues are going to be things that are generally the roof, the foundation, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, so your heating and air. And those are going to be bigger ticket items. Those are going to be things that also are things that you should be aware of, because obviously if there's a major issue with the AC, that's kind of a health and safety type issue. Things that you should budget for would be anything that may potentially break soon. So say it's working today, but it's almost to its end of its expected or useful life. Most major things like the water heater and appliances and things like that aren't expected to work for more than 15 or so years. And so if it's 20 years old, it's probably going to break down soon. Things like that, a seller isn't necessarily going to provide you with a credit for or replace it for you, but it's something that you should know, hey, I should probably set some money aside because this could be something that I'll need to replace in the near future. And then finally, there's things that you should just be aware of in the property. And sometimes that's something like a cracked receptacle cover, or that there should be, an additional door stop on a door or things like that. So they're not necessarily things that need to be fixed, but just things that you could do in the future or should be aware of. And so when you get an inspection report back, we will review the report in its entirety. The inspector will also review it with you. We always recommend to our clients to go for the last about 30 to 40 minutes of the inspection, so you can go obviously measure any rooms or things like that you need to do, but then talk to the inspector and they can show you the different things on the house of items of concern and stuff like that. But after you get the report and we review it in its entirety, there are 3 options that you have. So the first would be to just move forward with the property and not make any requests or anything like that. Inspection looks good, you feel comfortable with the home, you're going to move forward. The second would be to potentially have some negotiations, and then the third would be to terminate, right? And so if you had many major things on the inspection report that you just were not comfortable with, you could terminate the contract. But what I want to focus is if you are going to negotiate. So you can ask for one of a few things. The first would be a reduction of the sales price of the property, right? So if you're buying a home again for $500,000, maybe you request 10 grand off the sales price, so you're going to pay $490 and still move forward and not ask for any repairs. This doesn't really do a ton. It would lower your monthly payment by a couple bucks each month. That may be something that's important to you. The second thing would be to request repairs. And so so if there are 2 or 3 or 10 or how many ever things on the property that you want the seller to fix, we can ask them to fix it. They do need to use licensed professionals to do this work, or people that are engaged in that type of work to do that work. But I know that my standards and your standards and their standards and your cousin's standards are all different. So I generally don't recommend you ask the seller to do repairs on a property, just because whenever we start doing repairs or things like that, it's never done the way that I would do it, or you would do it, or he would do it, or she would do it. So what I normally recommend people do is ask for a credit towards closing costs. And so what this does would be the seller would provide a small credit to you, or even a large credit to you on your closing costs, and that would reduce the amount of money or cash that you have to bring to the table at closing. And when you do this, then you have more money in your bank account, right, or in your pocket. And then after closing, you would be able to do whatever repairs that you want to do, and you would be able to oversee them and use your contractors and things like that. And so that's normally the route we go, but obviously all 3 options exist, and we've seen clients do all 3. So once you finish inspections, once we go through inspection negotiations, then would be the appraisal. And so basically, if you are getting a loan on the property, the lender will send out a third-party appraiser to the property. And so basically what the appraiser is doing is they're a third-party person that's going to come out to the property to ensure that the property is worth what you are paying for it. We always want the appraisal to come in high. So again, if you're paying $500,000 for a house, we would love for that appraisal to come in at $515,000 or $520,000, because that means that the appraiser and now the lender think it's worth more, right? And you're only paying $500,000. If it comes in lower, then we can get into that on a future video. But basically, there would be some options there to ensure that you are protected in case the appraisal comes in low. But all in all, what the appraiser will do is ensure that the property is worth as much or more than what you're paying for it. They'll tell the lender, hey, it's good for you to give our buyer client the money for the property, and then you're going to move forward to closing. Before closing, you'll normally have to send in a few more documents to the lender to ensure that you are clear to close, and their underwriters have looked at all of your financials and pay stubs and everything like that to ensure that you're good to borrow the money. And you go to closing. Closing will normally happen with a notary or with a title company, where you will sign a ton of documents, basically purchasing the property. And once you sign all those documents and then you pay your money, then it's closing time. You get keys to your new home. So I know this was a long video, but this is the home buying process right now in 2024. One thing that I think as far as 2024 goes is, as we move through the year, most experts predict that interest rates will drop throughout the year. And so one thing, if this happens, is if interest rates decrease, that means that more buyers will enter the market. That means that more buyers that were sitting on the sidelines will re-enter the market. And if there are more buyers and the same amount of inventory, obviously then prices will increase. That also means that inventory may be a little bit tight. So if you're thinking about purchasing a home in 2024 and you're not ready today, that's completely fine. But I would recommend starting to get a game plan together so that you are aware of what you may need to do with your credit. You're aware of how much money you need to have saved. You're kind of in the know of what's happening in the neighborhoods where you want to buy. So if you have any questions, please feel free to book a call. Even if you're not looking to move until late 2024, maybe even 2025, book a call so we can come up with a game plan to help you buy your new home. That's all I've got for today. I'll see you on the next video.